What is going on, everyone? It's the Psychopath, and today we are learning how to build your own computer. Now, I don't have a lot of money to actually buy all the necessary parts, and I really don't want to start taking apart my own computer, maybe risk messing something up. So I have PC Building Simulator, and this does a pretty good job at emulating how to build a computer. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to learn how to build a computer. So, the first thing you got to understand is that you can buy individual cases, but certain cases will only support certain motherboards. If you use a website like PC Part Picker, you can make sure that everything is compatible, so you're not buying the wrong part and wasting like $150. So, first thing you gotta do obviously is remove all the casings. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Next, we gotta install the power supply, which is called the PSU. So, we'll go ahead and we'll unscrew all these. Now, this actually does a very good job at simulating building a real computer. So we're going to go into our box, and we've got a power supply here. So you got all these plugs that will connect to your motherboard and power various things. You've got a fan that will regulate the heat that this thing is generating. And then you have the main power supply, which is where the cable plugs into your power supply and to the wall to actually turn on the computer. So let's go ahead and we'll install this guy right here. And we will just screw everything in. So I want to point out that building the computer will take maybe 20 minutes if you're building it slow and you mess up with the screws somehow. So okay, now we have the power supply, and next we got to get the motherboard. Now the motherboard controls the components you can install, because it's all about compatibility. Because computer parts are always changing, different motherboards need to be able to support different sockets, different power supplies, different power things. So here you have everything. You know where the CPU goes. The I/O ports is like your USBs, your HDMI cable, all that stuff. Your PCI slots control whether you can plug in a certain type of graphics card. The CMOS battery is a little battery that controls the internal clock. I don't know what stand-ups do. The HDD SATA ports, this is where what's the word I'm looking for? It's where your hard drive gets plugged into, and the front panel headers is where the front panel here gets powered onto. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to screw everything in and get this all set up. And that's almost done. And so the motherboard, when I was talking about compatibility, this little slot here is where everything here gets plugged into. So we're going to go ahead and screw in the motherboard. I mean, you got to screw it in, otherwise it's going to be rattling around and you risk parts being destroyed. And that's a lot of money down the drain. So he's all screwed in. So now we've got to connect the motherboard to our power supply. We've got to connect the front panel to the front panel, because now our front panel has power and we can actually use a power button to turn stuff on. And then you have the CPU power supply. This is a power supply that runs right into the CPU itself. So we'll go and we will pick up our CPU. And this is what a CPU looks like. It has slots over here these are like pins that connect to the motherboard itself. You have the processor, which is inside everything here, and you have a heat plate, which is used to help transfer heat. So we open this guy up. Now, one important thing when you're installing a motherboard or a CPU is not only do you put in the CPU and not only do you close the CPU shield, but you've also got to apply thermal paste. Thermal paste helps to regulate the temperature, and you put on a little dollop of it, like a little pea-sized dollop, because when you install the fan that goes over the CPU, it'll help to regulate the temperature. So in this case, I'm going to click, but all you got to do, you do a little squirt, so that little squirt is there. Next, we have the fan. Oh, no, I do not want to do that. I want to resume. So we will go here. So this is the CPU fan. So this is the cooler plate, which goes onto the CPU itself. You have all of these here, which are the heatsink fins. These absorb heat from the power supply, or from the processor, and the fan here cools those so it never gets too hot. So we're going to go ahead and install. So when you're installing this, you want to make sure that your air cooler cables can actually connect properly and that they aren't too short. Otherwise, you just swap it around. So now we have the graphics card. The graphics card processes everything. So you have the processor here, you have the fan and heat sink in here. So when I was talking about PCI earlier, certain slots will fit into certain types of motherboards. So you gotta make sure that your PCI is compatible. Otherwise, you've wasted money buying the wrong graphics card. So we take off that PCI protector slot. We install the graphics card, and that just clips in right there. We install that. Now we're going to go ahead and install the memory. The memory controls how fast your processor goes. We've got those connectors. Different memory will work with different motherboards. So we open up these little memory clips. Now in this case, we're going to open up 2 of them because we're going to install 2 RAM sticks. That's what memory is called, as RAM. That is installed. Next, we got to install the hard drive. The hard drive, as you know, controls everything. So we're going to go ahead. We open this. We install the motherboard, or the memory. We close the bay drive, and then you got to connect it to the motherboard, which you're going to do right here. And you got to connect it to the power supply, because the motherboard won't power this guy alone. Next, you have to install an actual fan into the case. So this will help regulate temperature, because everything is going to be giving off heat. And otherwise, if your system gets too hot, it will force shut down. And that is not good for the system. That's not good for the memory. So next, we just connect the fan. So everything is now connected. And all we got to do is put the covers back on. And then connect your cables. So you got your power supply. You've got your USBs. And then you have your video, which in this case is a HDMI. Next, we will turn the computer on, and if all goes well, everything is powered on and working. We did that in about 6 minutes. It'll take a bit longer in real life because you got to make sure everything is installed. One final note is that if you're building your own computer, you have to buy your own copy of an operating system, probably Windows. Mac doesn't like you building your own computer and installing Mac onto it, and Linux is always free to download. So with Windows, you're buying the operating system itself. Or you're buying the product key for the operating system, because that's how they regulate who has a legit copy of Windows and who doesn't have a legit copy of Windows. Next, you're going to want to set up a USB, and there's instructions online for how to set up your USB to install Windows. So you'll set up the USB, you'll plug it into one of the slots that are up there on the panel. You're going to go into what's called a BIOS. Every motherboard has a BIOS. So it'll be like you hit like F2 or delete, and it'll take you to the BIOS. Make sure you're using your USB as the startup hard drive and not as the secondary hard drive. Make sure it's like on the top of the list. From there, all you gotta do is go through the setup instructions of the USB, and that'll take you to the installation of Windows, and you're all set. Anyways, guys, I hope this helps out. We will have more videos in the future, and we'll see you next time.